Thanks for checking out Helping Make Sense, where we try to simplify the world of finance so you can make the most of your money and knowledge. In today's video, we're going to talk about creating and sticking to a budget. Most budgets fail, not because it doesn't work, but because people tend to make it more complicated than it needs to be. Today, we can talk about how to create a simple budget and then how important it is to stick to it. What makes a budget so important is that you know where your money's going. Have you ever asked yourself at the end of the month, where did all my hard-earned money go? Having a budget helps you track that so you know where every dollar that you earn is going. The simplest way to start is to list all your money coming in, be it from a job, other side hustles, etc., and then starting to work out the list of where everything is going. Things like rent, groceries, subscriptions, gas, and so on. The income is probably the easier part just because you know exactly what you get paid, whether it's weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly, and you have your number to start for the month. From there, you just subtract everything that you expect to pay that month. Tracking your expenses can be a little bit challenging in the beginning just because it feels like there's money that goes out here and there is an event here that we don't have every month. But that doesn't mean that it has to be something that you get perfect each time. In fact, it typically takes a few months until you get comfortable setting your budget every month. So what does your budget say about you? It's just a reflection of your priorities. Most people who are working standard jobs, who aren't ultra high net worth, ultra high income, probably have pretty similar amounts coming in every month and similar amounts going out every month. The importance of a budget is knowing what those priorities are and where those dollars are going. Developing a budget doesn't have to be overly strict. For example, if you generally average $250 per month towards your water bill, but maybe it's the summer, you have a pool out back, or you just needed to shower more or something like that month, then the water budget may be a little higher that month. That's understandable, right? There's going to be little wiggle room here and there, totally necessary and appropriate, and always a good idea to allow for that flexibility when developing your budget. Now, what does that flexibility look like? There's a couple ways you can approach this. As you're listing out your expenses, you could choose to allow a little more on each line item. So, for example, if on average you allow $200 for water, maybe you budget for $250. That way, if it's under, now you have a little more margin. You're in the green in that category. Another technique you could use is simply increasing the miscellaneous line item. So as you're, again, going through rent, mortgage, utilities, groceries, eating out, subscriptions, etc., include an item in there that's categorized as miscellaneous, right? So if one of the other line items goes over, you have that little buffer in there. It becomes a different question if you have a bunch of different line items going over and then 3 more expenses that you didn't even expect. Now we're having a bit of a different conversation. But what's important in this is that we are listing out what we know we're spending every month so that we can get a hold of it and prioritize the dollars as we see fit. Once you develop your budgeting habit after going through it maybe 3-4 times, again, the typical time horizon of doing a budget is probably a month, but you could do it every 2 weeks, you could do it every 2 months. Since many billing cycles occur on a monthly basis, that's generally the default, and that's what I would recommend, but it doesn't mean you have to do it that way. After doing it and you've built this habit, you now have a sense of accountability to yourself, so you don't have to stress and worry about that, let's say, $150, $200 that you already set aside at the beginning of the month to eat out. Now you don't have to worry when you swipe your card at dinner and then your bill comes back and you aren't surprised by how much went towards that because you already pre-planned it. Too many people nowadays seem to spend, not think about it, and then come back later and realize, oh, wait a minute, I didn't realize I spent this much, and now they're in the negative and having to figure out how they can claw their way back. The budget is what helps to reverse that trend and say, here's how I'm going to spend, and then spend it. You may have also heard the term pay yourself first. This is a really good principle to follow when it comes to, in particular, saving for your future self in something like an employer-sponsored retirement plan like a 401k or a 403b. By you putting money into that account before you even see it in your paycheck, in your checking account, it helps you to save for future you, basically, and then focus on the current needs and present day. Whether you choose to do your budget pre-tax or post-tax, meaning you take your gross pay or the highest number that comes in on your paycheck and calculating from there by deducting things like taxes, Social Security, 401k contributions, and so on. Or if you want to do it after the cash is received, meaning it's in your account and now you develop your plan and your budget from there, either would be fine. Generally speaking, you probably want to include the highest number just so you can set aside money for taxes, retirement plans, etc. But again, implementing some type of practice is ultimately what's going to be optimal in this process. You also want to make your budget realistic, right? Given what your income is. So if you set up $50 of eating out money, but you know you are going to be seeing friends and family over the course of multiple weekends in a month, $50 probably isn't going to cut it. So be realistic with saying, all right, I will probably need about $250 for that event or for that line item. And then you can pull from another one, maybe pull back on something else that month. What you do, again, going back to this idea of how it's your initiative, it's your priorities, whatever you pull from will, of course, mean that you can't put the money towards that. So again, outlaying the plan each month, more than likely maybe every 4 weeks, that will help you determine before you spend the money, this is where this is going, this is where this dollar is going, and then it becomes a give and take as far as how much you feel comfortable spending here versus there. Just to wrap up, please keep in mind that the first time you do this, it will probably be a little bit of a challenge. It may feel a little bit overwhelming. But what I want to make sure you understand is that it's helping you set a plan and helping you to allocate or distribute your money that you have worked hard to earn in a way that makes sense to you, rather than guessing after the fact and after the money's already gone where it went. There are a ton of budgeting apps and programs and softwares out there. I wouldn't recommend one over another. It comes down to user experience. Some of them are free, some of them you have to pay for. But simply Googling or using AI to determine how to get started and just kind of lay out your income, lay out your expenses, and then it's just subtraction, addition, and allocation from there. What's important is that you get started. Just like any other habit to form, it's not easy the first time. So allow yourself that grace and flexibility to change your budget as you go, month over month. You'll adjust. You might have an unexpected payment. Maybe you can find some places to save in certain areas. All that is to be expected. So please be kind to yourself on that. The more you do this, the better you'll get at knowing exactly what's coming in every month and then where you want to have that money go out, some of which is known, consistent every month, things like rent, utilities, subscriptions, and so on. Other expenses and line items or things that you spend money on, you'll have some discretion in, right? You don't have to go out to eat 3 nights a week if you feel like you're spending too much. But how you do that will depend on what else you have to spend on, how else you want to save, and ultimately getting a sense of your priorities each month. And hopefully they change. You may be looking at the first couple months and thinking, my goodness, this is a lot. I am so far in over my head. Hey, Totally understandable. We've all been there. The best part is that now you know, and now you have to take action to determine here's where I can save, here's where I can perhaps increase my income, decrease my expenses, so that we can hopefully get to a good, what's called zero-based budget, meaning that everything coming in minus what is going out equals zero. And again, that doesn't mean you spend every dollar that you have. It just means that you've accounted for every dollar that has come in and you know exactly where it's going every month.